Prince William reportedly ended a phone call with Queen Camilla before the conversation was finished. However, when you follow the chain of events leading up to that moment, the phone call almost becomes the least surprising part of the story. The real mystery begins much earlier, with Tom Parker Bowles reportedly being removed from a royal estate. That single decision raises far bigger questions than anyone expected. Even more unusual is the fact that no clear explanation has been offered for why it happened. Instead of straightforward answers, there has been only silence, unanswered questions, and growing curiosity. The one conversation that was expected to clear everything up reportedly ended with the future king deciding there was nothing more worth discussing. That alone has left many people wondering what was really said behind closed doors. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn. If the issue had simply been a minor mix-up over estate access or missing paperwork, a brief phone call should have resolved everything. Someone could have said, "Here's what actually happened. Let's fix it." That would have been the end of the story. Instead, the conversation reportedly reached a point where it ended abruptly, suggesting that the disagreement had already grown far beyond a simple misunderstanding. Whatever was being discussed appeared to involve much deeper issues, raising even more questions about what had been happening before that phone call ever took place. So, here's what has been reported so far. Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's son from her previous marriage, was reportedly asked to leave or was removed from a royal estate. Exactly which estate was involved and the precise circumstances remain unclear, as no detailed official explanation has been released. That lack of clarity has only made the situation even more mysterious. When official answers never arrive, people naturally begin searching for their own explanations. Rumors spread quickly, unanswered questions grow louder, and before long, the mystery itself becomes the biggest headline. What has surfaced is that concerns had reportedly been building for some time. Estate officials were reportedly examining whether proper authorization existed for certain activities, whether access to restricted areas had been handled correctly, and whether the line between personal interests and royal property had become increasingly difficult to distinguish. That kind of language usually suggests that serious questions were being raised behind the scenes. Whether someone believed they had permission or whether those permissions were later challenged, the situation had clearly reached a point where estate managers could no longer ignore it. Once those concerns were brought forward, everything appeared to change very quickly. That's what makes royal estates so different from an ordinary family home. These are not places where everyone sits down over tea and quietly settles disagreements. Every estate operates under strict rules, professional staff, formal procedures, and multiple layers of oversight designed to protect the monarchy from exactly this kind of controversy. Once concerns reach a certain level, the people responsible for managing the state have little room to ignore them. They are expected to act, whether it is comfortable or not. They cannot simply say, "He's the queen's son, so let's look the other way." The moment one exception is made, the entire system begins to change. One special case quickly leads to another, and before long, the rules lose the authority they were created to protect. That is exactly the kind of situation royal institutions work hard to avoid. Once the line begins to blur, restoring clear boundaries becomes far more difficult. This is where the story becomes much more personal. For Queen Camilla, this was not simply about estate policies, procedures, or official responsibilities. It was about her son. Any parent would want answers after hearing something like this. If your child were removed from a property, and the decision appeared to trace back through official channels that ultimately connected to your stepson, chances are you would want an explanation as well. That reaction is not surprising. What drew so much attention was what reportedly happened after the phone call began. Instead of simply asking what had happened, Queen Camilla is said to have questioned the decision itself. She reportedly wanted it reviewed and possibly even reversed, making it clear that she believed there was still room for discussion. Prince William, however, appeared to view the situation very differently. From his perspective, the decision had already been made, and there was nothing left to reconsider. That difference in approach may have changed the entire tone of the conversation. Take a moment to consider Prince William's position. As the Prince of Wales and the future king, responsibility for the Duchy of Cornwall and its estates falls under his leadership. If estate officials presented him with concerns that rules may have been ignored or important boundaries crossed, choosing to set those concerns aside because family was involved could raise even bigger questions. What message would that send to the people responsible for enforcing those rules every day? It could leave staff wondering whether the standards they are expected to uphold truly apply to everyone. It could create the impression that carefully considered decisions can be overturned through personal influence rather than established procedures. If confidence in that system begins to weaken, the consequences extend far beyond a single estate or one difficult conversation, making the entire situation even more sensitive than it first appeared. From Prince William's point of view, the decision could be seen as a matter of consistency rather than harshness. The focus was not necessarily on being tough. Instead, it was about ensuring that the same standards applied to everyone. What has kept people talking, however, is the way the conversation reportedly came to an abrupt end rather than continuing. That is the moment where opinions begin to divide, and the mystery only deepens. Some people interpret the reported hang-up as the action. Some believe the actions reflected those of a future king who felt the matter had already been settled. If the situation had been thoroughly reviewed, the concerns carefully considered, and estate officials had already reached their conclusion, then what was left to debate? Revisiting the same points was unlikely to change the outcome. From that perspective, ending the phone call was not about disrespect. Instead, it was about making it unmistakably clear that the decision would not be reconsidered. Others, however, view the same moment in a completely different light. They see a stepson choosing not to continue listening to his stepmother while the discussion involved her own son. Whether the original decision was right or wrong almost becomes secondary. The image of that conversation ending so abruptly raises difficult questions, especially for a royal family that has always understood how powerful public perception can be. Sometimes, the way people perceive an event becomes just as influential as the facts themselves. The fact that events reached this point has led many people to wonder what was happening during that private conversation. Did the discussion become so tense that continuing would only make matters worse? Or did Prince William decide that changing course would carry a greater cost than standing by the original decision? Those questions remain unanswered, and that uncertainty has become one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the entire story. Whatever happened during those final moments has never been fully explained. Now, there is another part of this story that deserves a closer look because the reporting surrounding Tom Parker Bowles leaves several important questions unanswered. References have been made to complaints and concerns over authorization and access to areas requiring careful oversight were also reportedly among the concerns raised. Those details sound serious, but they stop just short of explaining what actually triggered the situation in the first place. That is exactly why the story still feels incomplete. The language suggests that something significant may have happened, yet no clear explanation has emerged. If there had been one obvious action that caused all of this, many people would expect those details to have surfaced by now. On the other hand, if the issue had been relatively minor, a straightforward explanation might have been enough to calm the speculation. Instead, the story remains surrounded by unanswered questions, official reviews, and unexplained decisions, leaving the biggest piece of the puzzle hidden from public view. That does not automatically mean something dramatic happened behind the scenes. It could simply reflect a royal communication strategy that keeps key details as vague as possible, making it difficult for anyone to confirm or challenge what really took place. However, that approach creates another problem. When clear answers never arrive, people are left trying to connect pieces that may not even fit together, causing the mystery to grow even deeper. Then there is the timeline, and that is where the story becomes even more intriguing. The information that has surfaced suggests this was not a decision made overnight. Concerns were reportedly raised, reviews were conducted, and only after that was a final decision reached. That kind of process usually unfolds over time, not within just a few hours. By the time Queen Camilla reportedly learned that Tom Parker Bowles had been removed, the matter may already have been moving through official channels for weeks. That changes the way the entire situation is viewed. If that is true, another question immediately follows. How did such an important matter reach its conclusion before Queen Camilla became aware of it? Was communication between estate officials and senior members of the royal family far less coordinated than many people assume? Or was the information intentionally kept quiet? Until everything had already been finalized, there was reportedly no realistic opportunity for anyone to challenge the outcome. Both possibilities carry their own sense of mystery, and each points in a very different direction. If communication within the royal household was truly that disconnected, it raises questions that extend well beyond this single incident. However, if the timing was deliberate, it could suggest that those handling the matter believed attempts might be made to change the decision before it became official. Moving forward regardless would indicate that they were fully aware the outcome could create controversy, yet they chose to proceed anyway. That makes the story feel much larger than a routine administrative matter. The situation also becomes more significant when viewed alongside Prince William's current responsibilities. He is no longer seen simply as a senior royal. As the Prince of Wales, he now oversees the Duchy of Cornwall, and every decision he makes is examined for clues about the kind of monarch he may one day become. Even decisions that seem limited in scope often take on much greater importance because people view them as early indicators of his leadership style. That level of scrutiny means every choice carries additional weight. If Prince William is seen as someone who applies the rules consistently, it shapes one public image. If he is perceived as making exceptions because of family connections, it creates a very different impression. Whether fair or not, those perceptions have become part of the story, adding another layer of intrigue to an already complicated situation. Once those kinds of reputations take hold, changing them can be incredibly difficult. That is why the Tom Parker Bowles situation appeared to evolve into something much bigger than anyone may have expected. It stopped being only about one person's access to a royal estate and gradually became a test of something far more important. People began asking whether the future king would place the institution above family ties when those two priorities appeared to collide. Suddenly, every development seemed to carry far greater significance. Queen Camilla's position in all of this is equally complex. As queen consort, she has spent decades living under intense public scrutiny. Few members of the royal family have experienced the level of attention she has faced, and over the years, she has learned just how quickly private disagreements can become public controversies. She understands better than most how carefully every decision is watched and how difficult it can be to restore public confidence once questions begin to spread. That is why the reports describing her response have attracted so much attention. If she truly challenged the decision as firmly as has been suggested, it could indicate that she believed something about the situation deserved another review. Perhaps she felt the outcome was unfair. Perhaps she believed the process itself had gone wrong somewhere along the way. Either possibility would help explain why she was willing to press the issue despite knowing how closely every move would be examined. Those are two very different arguments, and the distinction matters. One questions whether the final decision was the right one. The other questions whether the decision was reached fairly in the first place. Without knowing which concern was at the center of that reported conversation, it is almost impossible to fully understand why emotions appeared to run so high. That missing piece continues to leave one of the biggest questions unanswered. From Prince William's perspective, however, the situation can also be viewed through a very different lens. If estate officials carefully followed established procedures, reviewed the concerns before them, and reached their conclusion through the proper channels, then reversing that decision simply because the person involved was connected to the... If the decision had been reversed simply because the individual involved was connected to the Queen, it could have created a difficult precedent. That possibility may have carried consequences extending far beyond this single incident. The issue is not just about one decision. It is about protecting confidence in the system itself. The monarchy constantly faces questions about fairness, accountability, and whether the same standards apply to everyone. Any appearance that personal relationships could influence official decisions has the potential to spark even greater debate. Prince William may have believed that changing course in this case would shape expectations for years to come, turning one difficult decision into a lasting example that could follow him throughout his future reign. That possibility alone makes the entire story feel far more significant than it first appeared. It is easy to understand why some people believe Prince William had strong reasons to stand by the decision. If protecting the institution was his highest priority, remaining consistent may have seemed like the only option. However, one detail continues to stand out above everything else. The reported phone call did not have to end the way it supposedly did. Even if the outcome was never going to change, there were still ways the conversation could have been brought to a calmer conclusion. A response such as, "I understand why you're upset, but this decision has been made for these reasons and I cannot change it," would have ended the discussion very differently. That kind of conversation would still have been difficult, but it would have felt complete. Instead, the reported ending has fueled even more questions. It creates the impression that something happened during those final moments that has never been fully explained. Those final moments reportedly reached a point where continuing the conversation became impossible. Perhaps emotions reached a breaking point. Perhaps long-standing frustrations resurfaced after years beneath the surface. Or perhaps the discussion stopped being about Tom Parker Bowles altogether and shifted toward much deeper tensions that had quietly been building for a long time. That is the mystery no one has been able to explain. No one outside that conversation truly knows what was said. Yet, the reported hang-up remains the detail people remember most because it is something almost everyone can relate to. Many people have experienced a phone call that became so tense that someone decided to end it abruptly. It is an intensely human reaction. Seeing that kind of moment connected to the royal family feels especially surprising because the monarchy is usually associated with careful restraint, polished appearances, and measured responses. That contrast is what makes this story so compelling. It also says something about the way stories involving the royal family are often perceived. Most public disagreements within the monarchy tend to be presented through carefully chosen language, brief official statements, and just enough uncertainty to allow every side to protect its position. Sharp edges are softened, difficult moments are carefully managed, and direct confrontations rarely become part of the public narrative. That is why this reported incident stands out so strongly. A phone call ending abruptly carries a different kind of impact. It feels immediate, personal, and far more difficult to explain away. A conversation does not simply pause, it stops. There is no suggestion that everyone calmly agreed to revisit the issue later. Instead, it leaves the impression that the discussion reached an unmistakable endpoint before either side was ready to step back. That single moment has become one of the most talked about aspects of the entire story. Within a family where tradition and protocol shape nearly every interaction, ending communications so suddenly can carry enormous symbolic weight. Every gesture is often viewed through a much wider lens, making even a simple action appear loaded with meaning. Whether that interpretation is fair or not, the reported ending of the call continues to raise questions about what may have happened during those final seconds behind closed doors. Whether it was intended that way or not, ending a conversation so abruptly can easily be interpreted as a powerful statement. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked aspects of this entire story, the question of power itself. Once you move beyond the debate over estate access, complaints, and official authorization, a much bigger issue comes into focus. At its core, this becomes a question of who has the authority to make important decisions and whose judgment ultimately carries the most weight. Queen Camilla holds one of the most recognizable positions within the monarchy. As queen consort, her role carries enormous symbolic importance and undeniable influence. However, influence and formal authority are not the same thing. One allows a person to persuade, while the other gives someone the power to make decisions that officially stand. Moments like this highlight that difference in a way that is difficult to ignore. Prince William's position is very different. As the Prince of Wales, he holds institutional responsibility for the Duchy of Cornwall. In this setting, he is not simply representing the crown. He has official responsibilities directly connected to the estates under his oversight. That means any request to reconsider a decision would place him in an extremely delicate position. If he chose to reverse a process that had already moved through official channels, he could risk weakening the very system he is expected to protect. That possibility makes the reported conversation even more significant. The situation becomes even more complicated because of who was involved. Queen Camilla is not just another member of the royal family. She is the queen, the wife of King Charles, and someone who has shared decades of family history with Prince William. That long personal connection adds emotional layers that no official statement could ever fully explain. Whatever was said during that reported phone call was almost certainly shaped not only by the issue at hand, but also by years of shared history behind palace walls. The relationship between Prince William and Queen Camilla has attracted public attention for many years. Ever since Queen Camilla entered the spotlight during one of the most challenging periods in modern royal history, people have closely followed how that relationship developed. In the years that followed, there were carefully planned public appearances, shared engagements, and visible efforts to present a united family moving forward. Those moments suggested stability, but public appearances rarely reveal everything happening behind the scenes. Families often carry memories, emotions, and unresolved tensions long after the cameras stop rolling. Even when everyone appears united in public, private relationships can remain far more complicated than they seem. Whether those past experiences played any role in this reported disagreement remains unknown, but they continue to add another layer of mystery to a story that already raises more questions than answers. That is why so many people wonder whether this reported phone call was really only about Tom Parker Bowles, or whether it touched on much older issues that had been quietly building over time. Family disagreements rarely remain focused only on the single event that starts them. A conversation that begins over one decision can suddenly become about years of misunderstandings, lingering frustrations, loyalty, or relationships that were never as settled as they appeared. Before anyone realizes it, the original issue is no longer the main subject. When that happens, the discussion shifts away from one specific incident and becomes something much larger. It becomes a conversation about long-term patterns, trust, acceptance, and whether certain relationships were ever truly comfortable beneath the surface. That is one reason this story feels far bigger than the limited facts currently available. The unanswered questions leave plenty of room for people to wonder whether this disagreement was about much more than estate procedures alone. If the issue had simply involved Tom Parker Bowles and questions surrounding authorization, it might have remained a routine administrative matter with some uncomfortable family dynamics attached. Instead, the reported phone call has become the center of attention. That detail has taken on a life of its own because it gives the impression that the disagreement extended beyond paperwork or estate rules. Whether that impression reflects reality remains unclear, but it has certainly fueled curiosity. At its core, the situation appears to raise a broader question about where the line between family relationships and institutional responsibilities should be drawn. Who decides where that boundary exists? And what happens if someone with personal influence believes those boundaries should be reconsidered? Those questions are much larger than a single estate decision, and they help explain why this story continues to attract so much attention long after the reported events took place. Another important figure in all of this is King Charles, whose position appears especially challenging. On one side is his wife, Queen Camilla, who is reportedly concerned about how her son was treated. On the other side is his eldest son and heir, Prince William, who holds responsibilities connected to leading the Duchy of Cornwall. Both relationships carry enormous importance, making any response incredibly delicate. If King Charles were seen as supporting Prince William's position, some might view that as placing institutional procedures above his wife's concerns. If he appeared to support Queen Camilla instead, others could question whether that might weaken confidence in Prince William's authority over matters under his responsibility. Neither path is simple, and each carries its own consequences. That is what makes this story feel so compelling. It is not only about one decision or one phone call. It is about the difficult balance between personal relationships, royal duty, and the challenges that arise when those two worlds unexpectedly collide. For King Charles, the safest path may be to remain as quiet as possible and allow the attention surrounding the story may eventually fade over time. The monarchy has often relied on silence during difficult moments, choosing not to respond to every headline or rumor. Sometimes that approach works. However, remaining silent does not necessarily make personal tensions disappear, even when public discussion begins to quiet down. Private emotions can continue long after the headlines have moved on. One reason this situation has captured so much attention is that it reminds many people of earlier moments when personal relationships and royal responsibilities appeared to collide. In those situations, there were claims that family members felt they had not been treated fairly. There were also official processes that were said to have been followed, leading some people to view the outcomes as justified, while others believed they were unnecessarily harsh. Those similarities have naturally led to comparisons. Even though the circumstances are very different, as with many royal stories, the public has been left trying to piece together a much larger picture from scattered details. Small fragments appear here and there, but they rarely answer the biggest questions. Every new piece of information seems to create another mystery rather than provide real clarity. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps the story alive and continues to fuel curiosity. One major difference, however, is that Tom Parker Bowles has never occupied the same level of global public attention as some other members of the royal family. He is not known for making major public statements or shaping headlines through large media projects. Instead, he found himself connected to a story that unexpectedly placed him at the center of intense public interest. Whether anyone expected that to happen or not, it transformed what could have remained a private matter into a much larger public discussion. At its heart, the story keeps returning to the same difficult question. How does a family balance personal loyalty with the responsibilities of an institution? Those two priorities do not always move in the same direction. When they begin pulling against each other, even ordinary disagreements can become far more complicated. That is one reason this reported incident has continued to attract so much attention. There is also something remarkably symbolic about the reported phone call itself. Phone conversations are different from official statements, carefully written letters, or formal announcements. They are direct, personal exchanges between people who know each other beyond public appearances. When a conversation like that reportedly ends before either side reaches common ground, it naturally feels more emotional than a simple administrative disagreement. If the reports are accurate, the lasting image is difficult to ignore. A private conversation came to an abrupt end, leaving questions that have still not been fully answered. Whatever words were exchanged during those final moments remain unknown, but the silence that followed has become one of the most powerful and mysterious parts of the entire story, continuing to spark speculation long after the call itself ended. That is the image that seems to stay with people the longest, because it feels surprisingly human. Despite all the titles, traditions, and royal protocol, a tense phone call ending abruptly is something many families can understand. The circumstances may be extraordinary, but the emotions behind them feel familiar. That may be why this reported moment has captured so much attention. It feels less like a palace ceremony and more like a private family disagreement that unexpectedly became public. What happens next, however, remains the biggest mystery of all remains. Will everything eventually be settled behind closed doors through a quiet compromise that allows everyone to move forward without publicly changing the original decision? Could another arrangement be reached that eases tensions without officially reversing anything? Or will this simply become another unresolved chapter in royal history, quietly lingering beneath the surface, while every future public appearance is examined for signs that the relationship has changed? Those questions continue to hang in the air. The royal family has long been known for maintaining a calm public image, even when speculation suggests that difficult conversations may be taking place behind the scenes. That is one reason many people believe a complete explanation may never emerge. Instead of direct answers, there may simply be silence, leaving observers to search for clues in future appearances, brief interactions, or subtle moments that appear to suggest something more. Whether those clues actually mean anything is another question entirely. Yet, the larger issues raised by this story are unlikely to disappear anytime soon. What happens when personal loyalty comes into conflict with institutional responsibility? Who ultimately decides where that boundary should be drawn? And if the future king is willing to defend that boundary even when it reportedly creates tension within his own family, what might that suggest about the way he will approach even greater challenges in the years ahead? Those questions extend far beyond one reported disagreement. Whatever the full truth may be, The Tom Parker Bowles story has come to symbolize something much bigger than estate access, official procedures, or questions over authorization. It has become a reflection of the constant balancing act between family relationships and the responsibilities of the monarchy itself. If the reported phone call truly ended as described, many people see it as the moment when the two worlds briefly collided in a way that could no longer be hidden. The continuing silence only adds another layer of intrigue. Neither side has publicly provided a detailed explanation that answers the many questions surrounding the reported events. That leaves the impression that the story may not be finished at all. It may simply be waiting for another piece of the puzzle to emerge. Royal history has shown that important details sometimes surface months or even years later through memoirs, interviews, or biographies, completely changing how earlier events are understood. Whether that happens in this case remains one of the biggest unanswered questions. That may be how this story unfolds as well. At some point, another piece of information could come to light. It might come from a future biography, an unexpected interview, or even a casual remark that eventually finds its way into the headlines. Suddenly, one missing detail could completely change how people view everything that has happened so far. Until then, however, we are left with a mystery that still has far more questions than answers. A reported removal that has not been fully explained, a phone call that reportedly ended abruptly, a royal family attempting to present a united front, and millions of people trying to make sense of the limited information available. That is exactly what keeps the story alive. What makes all of this even more significant is the way public opinion can shape the conversation. It may not change what actually happened behind palace walls, but it can influence how the monarchy is viewed around the world. For the royal family, reputation has always carried enormous weight. If Prince William is seen as firm and unwavering, some people may view that as strong leadership, while others may interpret it very differently. If Queen Camilla is perceived as defending her family, opinions will naturally differ as well. And if questions continue to surround King Charles's role, those discussions can quickly grow into something much larger than this single reported incident. That is why stories like this rarely disappear overnight. Even if the original events were less dramatic than many people imagine, the way they are discussed can take on a life of their own. Right now, the picture many people are left with is one of unanswered questions, difficult decisions, private disagreements, and a conversation that reportedly ended before either side reached common ground. Until clearer information emerges, those unanswered questions are likely to keep the speculation going. One thing seems certain. The reported phone call has become about much more than a single conversation. It has come to represent the ongoing challenge of balancing family relationships with royal duty. And that tension is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. Whatever truly happened behind closed doors may eventually come to light. Or it may remain one of those royal mysteries that continues to spark debate for years to come. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who follows the royal family. I would also love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and tell me what you think really happened behind the scenes. Do you believe this was simply about one estate decision, or do you think there is a much bigger story still waiting to be revealed? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. As soon as new developments, fresh reports, or hidden details emerge, I will be here breaking everything down. The sequel is coming, with even more royal news, intrigue, and surprising twists ahead. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.